What's up? Energize, everyone.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. This is episode number 3.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Episode 3. That's crazy. That's crazy.
We
Well,
just
well,
we just hopped in and went live, huh?
I know. It's nothing like figuring out as you go. And you know what? I was told the other day that we are the top rated live stream on LinkedIn in the mornings. Now, someone else also pointed out that we are the only live stream in the morning. So, hey, we're number one. You got to love it, right?
How do you like my virtual background?
I love it. It's cool. Where are you?
Actually, a sunrise picture 5 blocks from my house on beautiful Lake Michigan.
Wow.
Yes,
Michigan. Yes. Yes. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, what's the weather like now in Michigan?
Well, thankfully, it's the last few days, and it looks like the few days ahead, it's sunny and 50s. And then Thursday, I'm super pumped. It's supposed to be a high of 62. So, kind of,
Wow.
what's it like in Texas?
Hey, it cooled down. We got into the 50s in Houston, so winter coats and gloves and all that. But
Gloves.
don't worry, it's gonna bounce back. It'll be 80 again soon. And this morning we're missing our fearless producer,
Yes,
Jim
Jim.
Kunkel. So what you're seeing, folks, is produced by the talented Heidi Brooks.
How did I do? I
Yeah, you
feel
did
like
great. You did great.
I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, we got
No, no, no. It's a live broadcast. There's no mistakes.
I agree. We have
Yeah,
good old John in. I love reading his comments, and CM looks like it says LinkedIn user, but I'm guessing
awesome,
that's the
awesome.
early
We're
er,
starting to get a following.
or
Yeah,
we're following them.
or we're following them. Well,
Right.
Heidi, what are we talking about today? I think we are expanding on our week 1 show, and we're talking about doubling down on your strengths, question mark, right?
Yes, we are. Yes,
Wow.
we are. I think it's a easy one to double down on an episode for. I
Hmm.
also think that it's a good and productive one to start your mornings doubling down, knowing your strengths, utilizing your strengths, and most of all, remembering them.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the thing is, how do you know what your strengths are and what they're not?
Yes, John. Um, for me and my experience and what I feel, first of all, listening to others' feedback. So I've had many years' experience in the workforce. And so you kind of got to listen to others' feedback, know their position. So obviously, take into consideration where they're coming from, but
Right.
point out, take note of the consistent. I think that's really important. Write those things down. Always write down when you're processing or analyzing anything. I think what you are naturally good at, what comes easy, and by that I mean what you feel at peace with, that you don't
Hmm.
have to practice too much. What are some
Hmm.
of the ways that you identify strengths?
Well, it's all about knowing yourself, right? And I think you are your own worst enemy and your best ally. And when it comes to being honest with yourself, I think your mind really doesn't help you a whole lot. It's kind of one of those things where I always think of the movie of A Few Good Men, where you can't handle the truth. Well, no, we need to know the truth, right?
Absolutely.
And and so I think our worst enemy oftentimes isn't what's going on around us, or our jobs, or the what's going on in the world. It's what's between our ears. What's between your ears, and I think that really is the number one battle you've got to win to be able to go objectively, hey, here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. And if you can't do that, and many of us struggle with it, I'd say get with a good friend, a family member, a colleague, that someone you trust, and go, hey, what do you perceive to be my strengths? Because you got to know what they are to get better.
Absolutely. I think utilizing some books and reading, I'm a big reader. Um, so I think utilizing books, even if you don't agree with that book, so as you're reading it, you're going
Hmm.
to identify more with qualities in yourself that either does not agree with the book or does. You're going to learn yourself a little bit more as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think that once you start to get to know, all right, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not so good at, then you can start to put one foot forward. And I think that that all comes down to, again, knowing yourself and going, hey, if I have a strength in a technical area, in a competency, maybe I don't need to work to improve there. I need to play over here for a while. And I think that that's the thing we talked about in week one, which crazy, we're in week three, but you gotta know, okay, what am I good at, what are my weaknesses, and then you have to start to play, all right, to those. And I think that where people get confused, and I think they get off the tracks, is they go, well, I'm going to play to my strengths. I think that's what we all do. We all have our strengths that carry us through, but I think you really need to focus over here on the things that you're not good at. What do you think, Heidi?
Well, I would agree with you. I'd be curious. CM and John are both very confident, naturally confident individuals. I'd be curious to know how they've identified their strengths over the years. And back to what you asked, I think yes, by being strong, you must know your weaknesses for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, you know, I, I what some of the things like I've mentioned is one of my strengths is faith, and I like to read. I enjoy learning. I all of those things have developed a more authentic self in me um, by learning what came by learning and constantly reading or constantly learning or consistently. I don't want
Right.
to say constantly, but consistently learning and being enthusiastic about learning has helped me, get to know what I'm naturally good at and or identify my weaknesses. And it's important to identify those weaknesses, like you said, so that you can obviously improve those, but also know what to focus on in vulnerable positions, such as interviews, presentations, leading, things professionally. It's important to definitely play your strengths.
I think so, and to use a couple of sports analogies, and I'm a oh wait, what does CM say?
You rely on good, honest feedback from people you trust and respect. Respect is
Hmm.
huge, yeah, and it
Hmm.
helps to work on things that are your passion. Yes.
Well, yeah, thank you for that, CM. And see, that's the thing, is you have to be able to take feedback, right? And I think that, again, I was talking about your number one enemy. I believe our number one enemy that holds us back is in our minds. And our mind doesn't really want to admit, hey, I'm not good at this. I really struggle over here. We want to stay in this kind of very comfortable place of I'm special and I'm gifted and all those things. And that all of that's great. But if you never start to see the reality of what you're good at, what you need to work on, I think you are in trouble because you can't truly get better. And we got a
How do you,
comment from John.
yes, and I have a question right up. So
Yeah.
John says how to, because I asked a few minutes ago, how do these guys identify their strengths? He said most of the time people will tell you what you're good at. Listen to them and ask people that are your friends. So
Hmm.
a few key things here between the four of us so far, is the person giving the feedback. So CM said trust and respect. John said listen to people that are your friends. I agree.
Hmm.
And I think I have a question for you when you said, knowing your weaknesses and accepting
Hmm.
feedback. Um, how do you identify people that have your best intentions at heart when they're giving feedback? So I think a lot of things that gets in the way for people in their 20s when they're receiving feedback at work is, let's be honest, they don't respect their boss. So whether
Oh,
that's,
oh, oh,
so
yeah.
what I mean, I'll go back to my own experience, and I respect is huge though. And first and foremost, always respect your boss. So this isn't something that I'm, saying to not
That's a
respect
whole
your
show
boss.
right there.
I agree. I was thinking that. Although Mike Myers' comment from last week, I definitely want to do for next week, but we'll talk about that. But,
Yeah, okay.
in my 20s, I worked in publishing, print, and copyright for technology. And my boss's feedback, I always respected because she was there from start to finish. But I would question seriously. So what I would do is take her feedback, respect it, process it, but some of it I would, throw out because it just she wasn't focusing on my strengths and it almost seemed negative on purpose. So what do you do, Mike, when you're in that position where you
Well,
feel like
yeah,
you can't trust who's giving you
yeah.
feedback?
So I think managers and supervisors have to build people up when you're giving them feedback. You can't just come in and go, "Hey, I noticed you're not really good and you're not meeting expectation at this long laundry list of things." Because what you're doing is you're just crushing that person, right? A better way to do it would be to go, "Hey, here's some positive feedback on some things that I think you're doing very well. And here's what I see in you for the future. However, we do have to bridge to that future, and to build that bridge, here are the things you got to work on." All right? And so from there, I can probably get that person, that employee, to listen more and accept what I have to say. But if I come across as, "Hey, you're just not getting it done, you're not good enough, sorry," then there's not a two-way street of communication.
I
Now, your question was a great one. Is, well, what happens when you don't trust that that person has your best interest at heart, right? And so what I try to tell people to do is objectively step outside yourself. Picture yourself in a TV show, whatever you gotta do to separate yourself emotionally from the situation. And that's really difficult. All right. It's very difficult because when someone criticizes you, you're gonna take it personally. And so try to take that emotional brain out of it and listen. And
yeah,
then,
listen.
and then, because the person giving the feedback probably does have some valid points. I mean, they just do. And
Absolutely. They
yeah,
always, yes.
yeah. So I would
I
say,
think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think a good piece would be to identify that you all are on the same page with goals.
Hmm.
So when a leader is giving you feedback, or vice versa, if you're a leader giving others feedback, make sure that you've identified shared goals so that you guys are on the same page, so that criticism that you're giving can be constructive.
Yep.
It's, I think, with any evaluations, giving or receiving, identify some few simple goals to show where you're coming from. Give
Yes.
examples,
Hmm.
and so as a person receiving that feedback, they can then take it easier or judge it productively when you have those shared goals in mind.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But 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 that's really tough. Hey Morgan, what does Morgan have for us?
Build the relationship with your team for when you are giving feedback, it is received well and opens a conversation. Will they? Yes, yes. This is a good proactive way to handle
Yep.
it for sure.
Yeah. You know, being a supervisor or a manager is not an easy thing. It's just it's not, and it doesn't come intuitively to everyone. And like it or not, if you are a supervisor or a manager, you have a responsibility to give feedback to employees. And one of the tougher things I found early in my career, I've been managing people since, in my 20s, is that, I wanted to tell people how great they were, and I didn't want to talk about the things I needed to work on. And
Hmm.
and I think that that's not helping those employees. You also have to give honest and objective feedback to them, because oftentimes, again, we have blind spots as to the things that we need to work on, right?
Yeah, we do.
And you just don't see them, and someone has to help. And a excellent supervisor manager is doing everything they can to help their employees be better, and
Hmm.
that includes building them up, and that includes giving them honest feedback and having that difficult conversation with them.
I agree. This is a great question I left up here by Raquel. Hi, Raquel. If you've never had a leader in your life, where do you go to learn better leadership?
Yeah. So, I would say, if you've never had a leader in your life, and that's such a challenging thing as an adult, right? Because where do you go to find better leadership? Well, first, Energize every Tuesday morning. We're here at 7 Central, right? And we talk about
Yes.
leadership. But I think you can find leadership within yourself, and and kind of walk with me on this one a little bit, because you don't need a person that you follow. You have to start to develop that inner strength and confidence in yourself, and that all starts with being honest with yourself. I'm not good at these things. I need to work on these things. I struggle over here. And then you start to attack them. And in doing so, people look at you and go, wow, they're improving themselves.
Hmm. I
Now,
feel
some people might not love that right away, because when you work with a group of people and you see someone that's doing something that you're not and they're getting better, what happens?
they start to try to tear you down
Why
sometimes
why do they do that?
because it deflects from their own weaknesses. If
Mm,
you're doing, and that's a difficult position for someone who's striving to improve to be in. But yeah, it helps them be more deflective in what they need to improve in.
right. Well, they feel bad, right? What you're doing is you're making them feel bad. You see
Sure.
that person that's going to go, hey, I'm going to go study this stack of stuff tonight so I can be better tomorrow. And they go, oh, what do you need? What are you doing that for? It's not going to help you. It's not like you're going to get a raise. The company, blah blah blah. And so what they're trying to do is keep you right there with them, because that makes them feel better about themselves, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, and then, so if you've never had a leader in your life, I would say become that leader.
Great
Become that leader.
advice. Great advice. I will say that at being a leader since my 20s as well, I saw a life coach for 6 years.
Hmm.
that helped develop me and my strengths and as well as my weaknesses, because I felt I didn't have a leader in my life. And so that's another, but your advice on be your own leader is huge, so huge. And I think that's what I ended up doing through the help of a life coach, a business life coach. There's plenty on LinkedIn that you can utilize, and it's been one of the advantages I feel from using LinkedIn on, you know, connecting with other leaders.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I think that there are great people out there, that will help build you up and that will give you that. But again, I'd be careful, right? Because truly, everything that you need is going to come from within you, and not someone other person. I kind of view this as, you as a leader, you can help people see possibilities, but only
I
you can make those possibilities a reality.
I agree. I think being around other leaders would be important as well. You know, if you're surrounding yourself with people that are trying to flex, that will tear you down, or even if it's, you know, indirectly trying to tear you down, when you surround yourself with other leaders, that's extremely important in your 20s. So you don't feel alone. So, you know, so you feel inspired. So you are inspired by others, and them improving will inspire you. John Shelton says, try to make yourself better each day, read, listen, and care about people.
Yep.
Caring, caring about people seems common sense. It seems natural, um, but it's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, is it something that we see a whole lot of right now, right? And actually caring about people. I think that we're trending towards being, unfortunately, the opposite. And again, in the absence of good leadership and building people up, that's what Energize is all about,
Yes,
right?
I agree. I agree. I was thinking this weekend, you know, what why are we doing this title, or why are we doing this broadcast, when I was kind of ruminating on this title, doubling down on your strengths. And truly it is to share with others, connect with others, learn from others. It's all of those above. And I love to read their feedback, their comments. As a matter of fact, Sam just posted, with or without a leader in your life, the key to business and personal success is building a network of people to aid, support, mentor, and provide good input.
Right.
What he says is key, and it's important to remember to be intentional on this. Seek out
Hmm.
people. When you're at the coffee shop or you see the same person there that inspires or intrigues you, it's more important to seek these type of people out that he's speaking of. And in your 20s or early 30s, you take that for granted. You think, oh, I'll meet someone else like that, or you
Right.
know, you're just
Right.
you're kind of honed in on whatever your focus is, or rushing. But really, it's important to remember. I recently just connected with someone that I feel is the leader in her personal life and now professionally. And she asked to have lunch. And recently I was busy, and I thought, you know, do I have time for this? And she was one that had always inspired me in my 30s, in
Hmm.
my early 30s, because I just turned 41. And I said, I'm going to make it a point to have lunch with her. And lo and behold, our lunch was so amazing and so inspirational. I intentionally made that lunch happen, and and left feeling inspired.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's an important point. Is, if there are people that are, that guiding a force, if you will, that helps you to charge up and to move forward, then you have to take the time, because those people are special, and they're not around everywhere, right? So if you're fortunate enough to have an excellent leader in your life, then definitely be deliberate and take the time to spend with them, because again, they're special people and they're not everywhere.
I agree. Be intentional. I agree. So
Well,
what if
let's talk. Can we talk about Heidi as a young professional? And then again, we talk about young professionals a lot. And you're coming out. You go, hey, I'm good at these, and I've got excellent analytical skills, whatever. Um, but I'm not good at writing. I'm not good at technical writing, written communication, maybe even verbal communication. But I'm really good. If you send me off, I can go to my cube, wherever, home office, and I can crank out this technical work. What would you say to that person? What advice would you give them?
for doubling or identifying their strengths?
Yeah, if they know that they're good analytically, but they also know, hey, I'm not good at writing, communicating, those kinds of things, and they were like, give me some career guidance. What would you say to
Prac-
that person?
Practice makes perfect.
Hmm.
Um, Also reading. So do some research on authors that are strong where you are not,
Hmm.
and read. Do a study on that book, especially if you enjoy it.
Hmm.
I would also say to, while you're practicing developing weaknesses into strengths, I would say to double down on your own strengths and identify your own strengths in the meantime. So, where they're good at writing, but not good at verbal communication, practice or write more. So,
Hmm.
if you can knock out, for example, in my industry, if you can knock out a case study or knock out a white paper, do more of those. So when you are when you do have a chance to practice something that you're vulnerable or weak at, you have all of that already done to incorporate into a presentation, and that's what I'm envisioning. So
Hmm.
definitely would be practice makes perfect. So, and read and seek out authors that, or even other team members, such as yourself, or, someone else on your team that's a leader, that can inspire you, and be vulnerable and honest and tell them what you're struggling with.
Oh, being vulnerable is so tough. So it's so tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are those out there. They're career coaches, those types of folks that'll say, you know what, just ignore your weaknesses, focus on doing what you're good at, and that will get you there. And
No.
I just think that's horrible advice. I
I,
do. Yeah, I just think it's bad advice, and to use a sports analogy in mixed martial arts, that's like saying somebody that's a excellent striker, don't worry, and they have no grappling skills. Well, don't worry about your grappling. We don't need to worry about. We'll work on your striking more to prepare for a fight. Well, what's that opponent going to do? They're going to use your weakness against you. Not a good grappler,
absolute.
not
Yes.
doing the jujitsu. Get in the gym, work on the things that you're not good at, and then you know that, hey, I'm a good striker, so I don't need to work on that as much. So I just struggle with people giving that advice of forget about your weaknesses, focus on what you're good at, because I think that's such bad advice. What do you think, Heidi?
I am a prime example of that being bad advice. And give me just a moment. At 27, I started my own company, added two other companies to that, and was very successful in my up and through my mid 30s. And at 28, I realized, okay, I'm here to serve. So I took a combination of my background in sales and hospitality, and I doubled down on my strengths. So that means I served everyone I could. I landed all the contracts I needed for success and opened all the businesses that others wanted in our area, and eventually, quote unquote, failed in the sense that I took on too much. I mean, I took my strengths and ran with it. And even with that life coach, I identified my weaknesses personally with them, but I never worked on them professionally. And if you looked at my career up until my mid 30s, I absolutely doubled down on my strengths and ignored my weaknesses. And eventually it's going to catch up on you with you. You're
Yep.
going to get to a position where your weaknesses are going to, you know, come out any way they can because you are meant to improve in life. No one is meant to not be the best that they
Right.
can be. So
Right.
when you ignore those weaknesses, it's very, very important to know and prepare. They're going to come out, and it's better to be proactive on coddling them as they come out or addressing them and learning from them versus doubling down on your strengths. So there's definitely my
Yeah.
business story.
Well, you said so much there, Heidi, and trying to unpackage some of that. One of the things that you mentioned was failing, and all successful people fail. They
Yes.
do. All successful people fail. And to be successful, you have to fail over and over and over. The difference between successful people and people that are, I'll call them in that mediocre category, is that successful people don't quit, and they learn
Yes.
from their mistakes, and they keep going, and they don't get discouraged, right?
Yes.
So,
Winston Churchill is one of my favorites when it comes to quotes on, keep going. I actually, this weekend, when I was ruminating on this topic, I emailed myself all of my strengths, and I
mhm,
didn't stop because I had ran into the quote, those that don't know can't teach. And then I first reminded myself, we're not teachers here on this broadcast. That's why we encourage the comments. And we'll get to Carl's in just one moment because it's a good one. But also, I went through and just emailed myself all of my strengths, and getting back up is one thing that I can teach how to get back up. And I before I identified that as my strength, I went through history, and then some of my feedback that I recalled. So that is so important because that is true success, personally or professionally. It's getting back up after you've quote unquote failed, and also trying again, learning. And like CM had mentioned, the oh, I lost it. But anyways, getting back up is certainly
yeah,
success in itself.
and I say oftentimes, in difficult times, that it's not what you do when things are going your way
Yes.
that matters. It's what you do when things are horrible.
Yes, you're
It's how do you
reacting.
react to that? And you want to be a good leader and you don't have a leader, well, get back up
Yes.
and view that setback as a gift, and remember that feeling of what it felt like to, boy, I didn't get it done. I failed, so to speak, and come back at it. Don't give up.
Yeah. So let's look at, because I was thinking about surveys and identifying your strengths. Carl says,
Yeah, good morning, Carl.
don't neglect to learn more about yourself. Take a culture fit survey such as Myers-Briggs, conflict management, or other tools for independent clues how you think. Interact with others and preferences for how you supervise and like to be managed. You can expand or get into the weeds. I love that saying from there, focusing on strengths or weaknesses. Completely agree. Thank you
Oh
for
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, and when I took Myers Briggs, and I took it with a group of folks that I work with, and we all shared our results. it really, and I was younger when we did this, and it really helped me to see that people are wired differently than me, and that's okay.
It
But
still floors me that people are actually different. It's you know, it's crazy, and absolutely it's okay. It's what makes the world so beautiful and keep turning, you know?
yep, yep. And so if you're introverted and you need that time to recharge by yourself, great. Go do that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. If you prefer a certain type of communication, you like to write versus talk, you know, as enlightened leaders and managers, we have to have adaptive communication styles, and we got to be able to understand the people we're trying to communicate with and adjust. So, doing a Myers Briggs, something like that, excellent advice.
I agree. I think one word we've left out so far is empathy. So to to summarize what we've gone over so far and what others have contributed to, we've talked a lot about developing weaknesses. So being getting better practicing. So do you, Mike, feel that we should double down on our strengths in certain professionally environment? Or are we not doubling down on our strengths and focusing on weaknesses? And can we incorporate the two together? So I brought up two things there, empathy and incorporating. I believe that we should incorporate these two things together. One thing is important while um, focusing and developing your weaknesses into strengths is to be empathetic with others. Put yourself, that's how you truly learn, is by putting yourself. Empathetic is such an overplayed word now because everyone says that they are, but it's important that you put yourselves in other people's shoes when they're giving your feedback, when you're giving them. And then also, when you're doubling down on your strength, it's important to be empathetic because you don't want to turn confidence into cockiness. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think you do a really, really good job of, and I think the reason you do such a good job of being empathetic is because it's authentic. So what do you think about being empathetic and
yeah. I think you have to really care about people, because people intuitively know if you care about them or you don't care and you're just pretending to care, right? And so
mhm,
I think that, in this this age where we we tear people down to be perceived as intellectual, or you're better than others, or that's perceived as leadership. I think we got to reverse that trend, because everywhere you look right now, you're inundated with negativity. Leaders, perceived leaders, politicians in the media, whatever, they attack other people and they go, look how great I am, right? And I think that we have to stop that trend. And the only way we can stop it is we're the consumer, right, of that product. And so I say, hey, no, we want to build each other up. That's what we are going to consume, is positivity, and start on the path. But also, you kind of jumped into a couple of things there. Well, can you double down on your strengths in your career? Okay, so let's talk about your career. Your strengths should help carry you and buy you time to work on your weaknesses.
great
That's
statement.
that's what they do. That's what your strengths do. They're there. They're already there. You don't need to work on them. That's a tool in the toolbox. While we are getting more tools, it buys us time. But if you don't put any more tools in your toolbox, you will hit a ceiling. And you see it a lot. You see a lot of folks that have that potential, but they cap out. Why do they cap out? Well, they're just playing to their strengths their entire career, and you can't go anywhere else.
So doubling down on your strengths and only doubling down on your strengths could actually harm those strengths and turn them into weaknesses, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely. It can
agree.
be very career limiting if you go, "Hey, I'm great at these things, but I'm not going to improve."
Hmm. Yes, people definitely know
Oh yeah,
when you're
John.
being fake.
Yeah, so there's a lot there to talk about, and again, I hear and see things and read things where people are giving folks the advice of let's feel good about yourself and play to your strengths. I think that is certainly well intentioned um, guidance, but I don't think it's great advice. I think it's really unfortunate if that young folks are hearing that, and they also need to hear, listen, part of being better is being honest with yourself, and it's not all about feeling great about yourself. It just isn't. The world doesn't work like that. Part of it is going, wow, I got some real weaknesses. Here's some things that I've got to work on. And doing that analysis. And if you can't do that analysis, find someone to help you give you that objective feedback. Because again, I would say our number one enemy is not what's going on in the world. It's not any of this stuff. It is what is between your ears. And you have to fight that enemy every day, because every single day, I don't feel like working on my weaknesses. I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like, but you got to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah, I agree. That was a very powerful advice. Being consistent is very, very key. I also, so one of the things of, here's another good example of doubling down on your strengths. My strength is working out. My weakness is diet. So I work out 5 times a week when I'm at my best. Most of the time, I work out 5 times a week. And that's not because I want the best body in the world. That's the body isn't what motivates me. It's because I am well aware of I eat whatever I want for the most part. Now, eventually, that is going to catch up with me, no matter how much I work out, because we all know, or we should know, vitamins is key, and you should eat to consume vitamins and not just out of enjoyment, etc. It's a balance. But yes, I do when I work out, when I'm at my best, work out 5 days a week, sometimes seven, because I don't want to put the time or effort into my diet or controlling my diet, but ultimately that's what's going to lead to strong health is diet, a balance of diet and exercise. So I think after this broadcast, I've really identified with, I definitely double down on my strengths. I also used to volunteer a lot. So I thought, well, if I have some personal weaknesses, and I still do, but not it's more of a balanced approach. But I thought I'll give to others in the meantime, while I'm working on my own weaknesses personally. But you also get to a point where you give too much. So
Oh, yeah, you definitely can. So the working out, I think that is something that the human body is designed to have increased heart rate, load your muscles, do things. And if you just sit day after day after day at your desk, I think our bodies were not designed to do that. So I
it's a
think that
fact.
and we look at unhappiness and negativity. It's everywhere. Go for a walk, get outside, go for a jog.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities to get exercise, you can go on YouTube and find a program that's perfect for you. I mean, there's something out there for everyone. So that's part of working on your weaknesses, right? Is just jumping in and doing it, and having the discipline to do it when you don't feel like doing it, because that's when you need to do it the most, right?
Yeah.
Because if you had that day where you're like, I don't feel like working out today, and you don't do it, the rest of the day just doesn't. It just, you feel gross. But when you do it, how do you feel?
Great.
You feel great. Yeah.
Hmm.
So absolutely, exercise, I think, is critical on your strengths, right? One thing I want to talk about real quick is that in today's world, in today's professional environment, we all have to be competent at many, many things.
Yeah,
But some advice I'd like to give folks is be an expert in one thing, in something. Deep dive into something and know as much as you can about one thing, because that sets you apart from the rest, right?
for
So
sure.
take the time, and be curious. Be curious and go, hey, I'm working on this project. Why am I working on this project? Why do we have to do this? Why do we do it like that? And really try to deep dive, because I think that folks that have that ability to go deep in an area, that sets them apart from the rest of the crowd, so to speak. So again, your strengths are your strengths. They're gifts. They should carry you along. And it's kind of like, yeah, I can go on autopilot, but work on those weaknesses.
I like it. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. One actionable item I will give, I'll end my part with is definitely read more. Pick up a book.
And so, Heidi, we got another show coming up next week. What are we talking about next week?
Uh, what did we say? I don't think we decided on. Is it
Yeah,
the
so we got a good one for next week. Ego and teamwork.
oh, wow. Okay, so
Ooh,
we're
yeah.
going off of our original timeline. I like it.
Yes, ego and teamwork.
I
So
love it.
so when you're working with a team, right? Like, how do you set your ego aside for the betterment or the best result for the team? That's going to be a fun one.
I can't wait. And
I know.
I didn't share Morgan's comment earlier because I was going to go back to it and then
Yeah.
forgot. But I think this comment and her other one about the goals is going to come into play with ego and teamwork because bottom line, if you're both focused, if you're all focused on what should be focused on, which is the end goal, there's no ego. But we'll get into that next week.
That's right. Well, folks, thanks for energizing with us. And we'll
I
see you next week, Tuesday morning.
Yes, thank you guys. Bye, Mike. Enjoy your day. You all have a wonderful Tuesday. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye, folks.
Bye. Ego is bad.